Alex, Peak Performance Reviews. Welcome to another vlog. I'm basically here for another episode of PPR Tech Garage. This time we are doing a video on race fuels, or fuels in general, but race fuels in particular. I'm going to talk to you about lots of different race fuels and the fundamental basics and what you need to know about race fuels and how you get your head around understanding what could potentially be right for you and understanding the general properties and breakdown of a race fuel. So yeah, just before we carry on, obviously we are in a lockdown at the moment, we can't do videos, and I am going to be doing a video on this. So I have a number of these from Renegade Race Fuels, and I am wanting and going to be doing a video on my Supra at a later date, hopefully very, very soon. We're picking up the car really soon, and we're going to be on the dyno. I'm going to get, it's going to be a bit delayed because obviously I want to make sure the video is correct in the sense of I want to be able to get right in there with the tuner. At the moment we're not able to do that, so I want to be able to bring that to you so I can really look at the fundamental differences between the pump fuel numbers, pump gas numbers if you're watching from America, versus the race fuel numbers, so we can tell exactly how much better a race fuel is and what that race fuel gives and does for you or the car over a pump fuel. That will be it the torque and brake horsepower figures, and also the safety features that brings to the car as well. So yeah, we're going to go down that route at a later date. If this is, are you watching this later, I'm going to ping up a video of that exact video that I'm talking about up the top there, because at a later date I can do that. But yeah, I'm going to go into the basics of basics and actually quite advanced video in terms of understanding race fuels and what they're about. I'm also going to try and give you a bit more of an understanding as to what race fuel is potentially better for you. There is fuel selectors and charts out there on different websites, although I highly recommend the Renegade race fuel, and the reason why is I've actually done quite a bit of research before I decided going for kind of Renegade race fuels and the differences between specific race fuels and Renegade, and I just like what these guys are doing. And I like what I'm hearing about these fuels, and especially for the price. So it's definitely my choice for sure, but we're going to see just how good they are hopefully very soon, and on that video that I was talking about. If you can't find a guide, you need to hit these guys up. So go on the website and ask them what fuel is best for you. So give them your kind of needs and your wants and your desires and what you need from that fuel, what you're using it for, and they'll tell you specifically what fuel is best for you. At the same time, dictated by how much you want to spend as well. Because obviously, typically speaking, the more potential power these fuels make, the more expensive they tend to get. So it's a bit like a good oil. There's more development and more additives that are added to the more expensive fuels, but the more expensive fuels do tend to give you a lot more power. But I'll go into that later on in the video. Obviously, talking about that fuel, just so you know as well and you're aware, the difference between each and every fuel, whether it be a pump fuel, a certain lower octane race fuel, or a high octane race fuel, every different fuel will have a completely different tune. It will have to have a different spark advance and a different air fuel mixture specific for that fuel. So you just do need to realise that. You can't just put a race fuel in and expect it to give you a really good number. It will nearly always give you protection, but it always needs a tune from your tuner just to optimise and get the absolute maximum you can out of that fuel. And fundamentally what a tuner needs to do is they're trying to find the safest good power figure that you can get out of that fuel safely. Simple as that. An engine tuner will obviously listen to knock. That's the key thing, seeing how far they can go in advance in the timing before they get to a point of knock, and that will dictate obviously the end power result of that particular fuel. Now if you are watching and you don't even understand what knock is, that's fine, I'm going to explain it now. Knock is a threshold that the motor will get to when it can't mix the fuel correctly, and what it then has, it almost has this sonic kind of kickback, or what is called knock, pinking, Pinkin, it goes under the same, lots of different names and aliases, but it fundamentally is when the tuner is advancing the timing and getting more extreme with the timing and everything else, and the car just basically is fighting it and saying, no, I give up, I can't do that, I can't quite get to that level. And then it's just at that point the tuner's slowly ramping up and trying to be more aggressive with everything as much as he can, and then all of a sudden he'll hit knock. He then will take it back down to a lower amount, just to the point of where he doesn't get that knock. That is at the point where you are at your maximum safe limit for that fuel. Simple as that. So going on to the fundamentals of the breakdown of the different numbers that you get on the back of or on the tech sheets for these race fuels. I'm going to go through each and every one of those, or each and every one of the really important ones or mildly important ones. Some are less important than others, but the ones that I'm going to mention are the typically most important ones that you need to kind of know about. You don't need to know about it, because obviously your tuner probably needs to know about it more than you, but if you want to learn about it, these are the things that you kind of would like to maybe know and understand a bit more, just because it's interesting. And also, if you are someone who's starting to want to get into tuning, then obviously understanding these fundamentals are quite worthy and worthwhile and powerful, actually. So I'll go through those for you right now. So I'm going to give you a tech sheet from the back, or a tech spec sheet from the Renegade that I'm using, which is the RM K16. I'm going to put that on the screen for you now. And then I'll basically talk you through effectively the things that I am going to mention. I'm going to mention specific gravity, the RON, the MON, the stoichiometric air-fuel ratio, and then also the oxygen content. I haven't, or I'm not going to mention the lead content, although again, your engine tuner and your race fuel vendor will let you know about whether you need lead additive or a higher or lower lead content for your specific car. But that will be dictated by what type of car you're using, and they'll let you know about that anyway. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about specific gravity. Typically speaking, specific gravity is a standardisation. It's a standardisation that to some extent you would it'd be worthwhile knowing about. And specific gravity is a standardisation that is less fixed on a pump fuel, essentially. The specific gravity of a pump fuel will be between 0.7 and 0.8, but the pump or the fuel manufacturer cannot give you a controlled figure of what that specific gravity will be. So they give you a very vague 0.7 to 0.8 specific gravity number. Now, race fuel manufacturers have control of exactly the content. They are mixed exactly to a specific gravity and a specific mixture every time consistently. So you know that once you've got a tune for that fuel, it is as it is. Whereas a pump fuel can be very up and down. A good ECU can self-adjust to that, like my Cyvex that's on my Supra. But realistically speaking, that is the benefit a huge benefit you get from running a controlled fuel like a race fuel. So the typical is 0.7 to 0.8, and on different race fuels you'll see that a specific gravity content is between 0.7 and 0.8 somewhere, but it'll be a fixed amount. And obviously, again, on screen, if you see the K16, I have the RM K16. The specific gravity is a particular number. It's not a range of 0.7 to 0.8, it is a particular number, and you can see it there on the screen. And effectively, the number is dictated by lightness or density of that fuel. The lower the number, the lighter, the lower the density and the lighter the fuel is, and the lighter the fuel is, the faster it burns. The higher the number, the slower it burns, and that normally equates to lighter equals better, heavier, worse. That's it. That's specific gravity in the best way I can kind of describe it. There's a lot more to talk about if need be, but I'm not going to go on that as seriously advanced. Okay, the two ones that I think a lot of us know, even a lot of people that are probably watching know, RON and MON. So there's two different figures. RON is typically what us in Europe use to dictate essentially the fuel's knock potential, which basically means the RON it stands for research octane number. MON is a motor octane number. MON is used in the USA on their pump fuels. RON is used on our pump fuels. It's also in the race fuel figures. And the difference is the RON is a more basic test that's been done in Europe to dictate what or how much you can tune a car, or how much anti-detonation, anti-knock properties the fuel has. And the MON is much of a muchness, but it's to a higher standard, so it's tested to a higher standard. I'm not going to go into too much more other than that. RON is typically higher than MON, and I'll explain a bit more now. And when I say it's anti-det properties, again, it's to do with knock. It's how much it can take before it gets, and how much spark advance you can take that fuel to before you get the knock and the pinking and the pinging. But RON and MON basically have a percentage of iso-octane and heptane, and it's a percentage ratio, and it's normally based on the iso octane percentage. So 95 iso-octane percentage would be 95 RON, and then there'd be a 5% content of heptane, but it'd still be based on the iso-octane number, and that is RON. So MON is used in the USA, and also AKI number as well, which is anti-knock index, basically. And that is, yeah, fundamentally very similar to RON, but it's a more thorough test, and it's typically a lower number. And the AKI number is RON plus MON divided by 2, and then that's the AKI number, which is the anti-knock index. And that's your AKI number, which is normally on a pump in the USA, but we don't get that. So, but that is fundamentally it. The next one that you'll see that is on that kind of going down from the top is the stoichiometric air-fuel ratio mix. Now, typically speaking, an air-fuel ratio for a pump fuel, that most people will probably know, if anyone has ever had an air-fuel ratio meter. If you were always told, you'd know what kind of figure that would need to be. I used to have one that used to kind of go into red, and then a green, and then kind of yellow. And one was kind of lean, and then there's stoichiometric, which is in the middle, which is green, which is ideal. And then you've got rich, which was red, I think. So actually it was yellow, lean, I think. Green was stoichiometric, and then red was rich. Lean is obviously lack of fuel. Stoichiometric is perfect mixture, and rich is too much fuel. And a normal stoichiometric perfect ratio for a pump fuel is somewhere between 11 and 12. I think I remember my stoichiometric being somewhere like 11.5 in the middle, and that was normally where it lie with a pump fuel. Some people can kind of go up to 12. There is some people manage to get different figures with different pump fuels. Obviously, Shell V-Power is 100 RON, very, very good fuel, which also has some ethanol content in it. This time of year, which is winter to kind of come into summer, the ethanol content in Shell V-Power is typically 5. You'll see it on the pump, E5, that's ethanol 5, so E5, and the 5 is basically that's percentage of ethanol content. So if it says E5, that's 5% of ethanol content, and then it'll be 95% of fuel, which would be the V-Power. I think in summertime, Shell changed their ethanol content to up to around 7 to 10, and then you'll sometimes see it on the pumps. It changes and will say E7 or E8 or E10. So we get a higher, better quality ethanol content in summer. So often you do get more power in the summertime when you've got a nice, modified car or something like that. So yeah, that's obviously worth noting as well. And then the last one that we're going on to is basically oxygen content. Now, most race fuels have a low oxygen content. The really high octane ones like this that I've got have very small amounts of oxygen content. You'll notice that if you ever look, and I'll probably give you an example of it, of an E85 or an E100 on the screen, which is an ethanol fuel, and you'll see that the oxygen content is very high. Now, this is why I'm going to go on to ethanol fuels. I've never liked ethanol fuels. There's lots of positives, but there's a few negatives I don't like. That's my personal opinion. It's not that I don't completely like them. I suppose it's more something that I just wouldn't run. It's not my personal preference. I'd rather spend a bit more money on a race fuel than an ethanol-based race fuel. And the reason being is it has such a high high oxygen content. Now, the reason why it's not so good to have a high oxygen content on E85, for example, 30, E100 up to 35, so somewhere between 30 and 35%. You need to find that 30 to 35% of extra fuel. So to compensate for the oxygen content, you need to find that amount of extra fuel in percentage. So you have to have a much bigger fuel system to cope with ethanol content, or E85 or E100 in particular. Obviously, you need to run a flex fuel sensor as well, which detects the ethanol content if you've got a non-stable ethanol content. But typically speaking, there are some positives from E85 and other high content ethanol fuels. They have huge torque potential making. They run really good fuel. They run really good power and torque numbers for the amount of money they cost. They're great price. They're very decent price, even from something like Renegade. So you can get them. And again, it's just my preference not to run them. Now, if you the other thing you also get from an ethanol-based fuel is they tend, because they're hydroscopic, they basically absorb moisture, so they absorb water, and that water is will end up being found in the fuel injection system, so in the injectors, can ruin injectors, and it can lead to premature engine failure or premature engine wear as well, because you're going to get water in the bores and in the oil. It will start to basically get in there. If you change your oil a lot, it would be great. The negative to running an ethanol-based fuel in Europe is we have high humidity. If you have high humidity, there's more potential of getting more water in the hydroscopic, properties that are based in that race fuel. But normal race fuel has very low oxygen content, so you don't need to worry about that. And that's why I prefer it. It's a bit more like a pump fuel. You've got less potential of that, anything like that, being the added little factor of a premature engine wear. So I prefer to run a race fuel. You need to run huge injectors also often to run an E85 or an E100. So again, prices of things increase. They wear through fuel lines unless you've got a really high quality fuel system. So often old fuel systems will not like ethanol content based fuels. So there's negatives, but there's things like you can go quite advanced or quite aggressive with the tuning for the price. They do have a lower miles per gallon figure typically, so that's another negative. Emissions are normally better, although the NOx normally goes up, but the emissions go down, so there's positive and negatives there. But essentially what I'm saying is, as ethanol content rises, oxygen content rises typically as well. Yeah, one of the other negatives is worth kind of pointing out, that if you do need to be careful if you're running a high ethanol content fuel, is that they have a very short storage life as well, because again the hygroscopic properties and the absorption of moisture and water. If you let your kind of tank of fuel, E85 fuel, sit there, you're potentially going to have something that then is going to go into the injection system then and be really, really bad in time. So if you are leaving ethanol content based cars with lots in the tank for long periods of time, you are going to potentially run into trouble. So you need to kind of maybe drain the fuel system, drain the lines somehow as well, purge the lines before you do anything else. But yeah, just something that's worth noting. If you kind of change your oil a lot and you use the fuel that's in your tank, you know, relatively quickly, and you're not in a humid climate, or you're just doing things and maintaining the car in the correct way, for the price, ethanol is hard to beat because the power it makes. For example, E85 and E100 race fuels, they make the kind of power that 110 to 116 octane fuels run, which is, you know, you're sometimes talking a lot of money to run 110 to 116 octane fuels, or more near the 116. To get the power that E85 and E100 runs, you need to run a serious race fuel to get anywhere near the same power and torque. But yeah, so that E85 can be good. Do your research and think about it before you get it. But it is a good option if you do the correct things and use the correct maintenance to use it. But fundamentally, that is everything, and that will give you a good basic to more advanced knowledge on race fuels and understanding about them. We're excited to run the K16, the RM K16, Renegade fuel. I'll put a link in the bio to Renegade stuff. Go check them out. Go check their products out, because the quality and the RON and the MON and the oxygen levels in these, for me, for every price point, they're absolutely second to none. For me, they are the best race fuel out there for the money, for the results you get at the moment. Obviously, we're excited to look at the full results. We're going to do a full race tech video, a PPR tech video on our race fuel, and we're going to show you what kind of power levels we get from a pump fuel versus a race fuel in my Supra. My Supra has run 888 brake horsepower on pump fuel before. We've added some much more new stuff on that car, so we're going for over 1,000 horsepower. On pump fuel, we're probably going to start to see a limit around hopefully the 1,000 horsepower level, and then the race fuel is going to take us around or beyond the 1,100 horsepower mark. But you'll just see what the race fuel does. So we're going to look at, you know, the cooling properties of that race fuel, the anti-detonation properties, and every fundamental positive from that race fuel, and how more advanced you can go with, and how much more aggressive you can go with the tuning as well. We're going to do a very techie video on that on my Supra at a later date, very, very shortly, when possible. So yeah, look out for that video. It is going to be coming very, very soon, and check out Renegade Race Fuels, as I said. I really hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and if you've got any comments, hit us up in the comment section, and please like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you again on the next one. Bye for now.